Welcome, everybody. Getting over a little bit of a cold here, but I'm Chris Metzler, Director of Programming at SF Indie Fest. Really excited to have you here. As you might have seen on our website and through the press, we're celebrating 25 years of bringing some of the more interesting independent films from around the world here. You're lucky enough to have just seen the really wonderful documentary, Love in the Time of Fentanyl. And we have some of the folks from the film here. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
For having me.
Absolutely. Can you both, can you each introduce yourselves?
Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm Sarah Blythe, Executive Director of the Overdose Prevention Society here in Vancouver, and really thankful to be here.
And I'm Amy Evans. I'm one of the managers at Overdose Prevention Society, and glad to be here as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Colin Askey, and I'm the director of Love in the Time of Fentanyl.
Awesome. Thanks for crafting such kind of a interesting film, and just one that's just so thought-provoking, but also thanks for sharing your guys' stories. What was the kind of genesis? Like, what kind of inspired you to go down this path and make the film, Colin? And Sarah and Amy, as kind of Colin had decided to make this film, what kind of made you guys kind of jump on board as collaborators?
So for me, I worked in the downtown east side for many years, and it's a community that has really changed my worldview. I, on a personal note, have had my own kind of story with addiction and was court ordered into a treatment center when I was like a teenager, and went on to work in abstinence-based kind of treatment for many years. And when I moved to Vancouver and started working in the downtown east side, it was really my introduction to harm reduction, and it really kind of changed my entire perspective on these issues. And I think at first glance, when people come into this neighborhood, people see it as a problem area. It's often been referred in the media as like Canada's poorest postal code. And for those of us that are lucky enough to have been a part of this community, though, we all know there's a lot more to it. And as I worked there, I really just fell in love with the community. And beneath the surface, there's so much love going on in this neighborhood, and so many different amazing services. It's kind of a world leader in a lot of these services, and there's a strong history of kind of grassroots activism. Insight was the first supervised injection site in North America, and so I worked at Insight. I worked in the safe injection site there, and so through that, I just knew how much magic happens inside of these sites, and how much love, and how it's a lot more than people assume when they think about these sites that aren't familiar with it, that it's just a place where people use drugs. Not only do they save lives, but these relationships are built with people that really aren't welcome anywhere else in society. And when you have a space that allows people to feel welcome and not judged, and treat them with dignity, some really incredible levels of trust and relationships are built there. And so I knew that happened, and I knew what was possible. When I moved to New York in 2016 is when fentanyl was really hitting Vancouver's downtown east side, and I was kind of listening from far as we'd hear, like, probably get calls weekly of people that we've known and loved and seen every day passed away from overdose, and it was really just kind of, it's hard to explain and hard to really describe just what that's like, just losing that many people that quickly. But I'd known Sarah for many years. We worked for the same organizations and stuff like that, and I was hearing, like, a lot of the media at the time was covering how tough this was on paramedics, and it was really tough on obviously everybody, but it wasn't really covering the people in the neighborhood who were kind of teaching themselves to use naloxone and really leading the way in reversing these overdoses and responding to the crisis when the health authority and government leaders and stuff like that really didn't have a clue what to do. And it was people in the community and people like Sarah that said, you know what, enough's enough. We're just going to do this at a time when starting, you know, safe injection sites or overdose prevention centers was technically illegal at the time. And they kind of said, screw it, we're going to do whatever we have to do to keep our loved ones safe. And that really just was, I think, you know, it was being out of not being able to be there. The one thing I knew how to do was work a camera, and I wanted to try and just capture as much of the bravery and the response as possible. And yeah, that's kind of what led me into asking Sarah and having, I think Sarah can talk about this, but having, you know, knowing that she knew me and I knew a lot of people like Norma and people that worked there for many years. So I knew that they knew I wasn't going to be, you know, trying to exploit anything and wasn't going to, as the media often does cover this issue in ways that doesn't really capture the whole story. I think that they knew that I understood in a different way than most people.
And did the presence of the camera kind of change the way you all approach things, or were there things that you needed to kind of be worried about? I mean, kind of be more sensitive about, in the sense that was the community pretty welcoming to kind of wanting to be able to share the story in this kind of more intimate and personal way?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, I think it definitely helped that I'd worked for many years in the neighborhood, so there definitely was some face recognition, and I did know a lot of people, but it's still like very, you know, I didn't want to be in the way of any services, and a lot of people have a lot of issues with, you know, cameras and stuff like that because, you know, they have had negative experiences and stuff. So it was a lot of work kind of coordinating with like the staff and stuff and making sure that I was letting people know what was going on before I would enter like the actual room where people were using and the actual sites. It was just a lot of communication that had to happen, and making sure that no one was going to be on camera, and people knew that no one was going to be on camera that didn't want to be, and two, that I wasn't going to be in the way of any services. And mostly it was like Eric helped me out a bit, and he'd worked in the community before, but other than that, there was a lot of, you know, people that worked there were holding booms and stuff like that. So it was mostly just like me
Wow.
and maybe one other person, and then people, you know, and staff and stuff helping out with the project too. So that was pretty cool, like really collaborative and beautiful aspect of it as well, that it felt like a community effort as well.
And Colin was and his crew were great about consent. So everybody that was on camera was happy to be there. And I think a lot of people welcomed an opportunity to be a part of it, to feel like they were included in sharing their story or included in having a voice for the community.
Yeah. And knowing Colin, and I'd worked on other small video projects with him, and I knew that he knew a lot of the people, and I knew that, you know, the project that he had worked on before, he had done one on the street market, which is what I had been managing in 2016, when we started seeing more overdoses. The street market is a market for homeless people in the downtown east side of about 200 vendors. And we were outside, so we started to see people running to the market, and they were screaming that there was an overdose down the street, or there was overdoses in the market. So, you know, we just needed to know that we needed to be prepared in a way, like a medic tent style, like pop up immediately due to the overdoses that we were seeing in the neighborhood. So it was, you know, I had worked at Insight as well, so I sort of understood, you know, what needed to be done. But at the same time, I knew that it needed to be community driven by the people that were already working in the market, or some of the people that were even experiencing overdoses. So we really, at the very beginning, decided that we were going to do a for the community, by the community, very, very grassroots initiative. And it took 3 months for the government to really say, you know what you're doing is important and we want to support it. And the way that Insight had been built over time is we had a very conservative government who really made it impossible to make another Insight. So we just needed something that was really grassroots, easy to pop up, easy to take down if we needed to, if the crisis ended. Unfortunately, in Vancouver, things are continuing. You know, the drug supply is just fentanyl now and other awful stuff. And so we're just dealing with things. And it hasn't ended. So thankfully we have the support of the government to help people, but obviously we need to do more, and we're trying to do more.
And, have you had a chance to kind of share the film with the community there in Vancouver, and like what's been the response?
Yeah, we've seen it together. There's been some viewings here in Vancouver, and all come down, and everyone's proud of it. Everyone's thankful that they've been a part of the film, and thankfully to Colin, he was inclusive of people who were filming. He was inclusive of direction of where he wanted to go, and very thoughtful and understanding of what people wanted or didn't want. And even some things had been taken out along, that people didn't eventually feel comfortable with. So I think he was always willing to make sure that there was consent all along the way, and even now with the film. So it was very, at first it was obviously stressful. It's always stressful to have someone come in and film something where people are so vulnerable. And but Colin is probably the only person that I've we've really allowed for that. And it was based on knowing Colin and him knowing people, and under feeling very, very much like we have like a bond where of respect and wanting to get consent from people.
And Colin, as a filmmaker, how did you kind of approach the kind of visual aesthetic for the film? Did you, in the sense of like, in being kind of familiar with the community, but then also, wanting to kind of like, how did you kind of craft the kind of visual style of the film, and what were some of the things that went into that decision making?
Well, having no budget and just running around trying not to be in people's way, was kind of the number one. But I definitely definitely for me, there's a few different styles in my head. Like originally, I think I was like viewing this approach as more of like a study on the space, and coming at it from like a Frederick Wiseman kind of perspective of just allowing things to happen. But then as things started happening in people's lives, it was more about following characters and showing that as well. So with that, the visual style changed. I also felt like, it's a space that people don't get to see, and people have a lot of strong kind of deeply entrenched beliefs about people who use drugs and addiction in general. And I think that there's a comfort level that I wanted to bring an audience past, and show the beauty of these amazing people, and a lot of the struggles. So I was thinking about kind of comfort levels, also like a balance between, there's a lot of like close-up shots, and that is to avoid a lot of people that I didn't know or hadn't had the conversation with about what I was doing and stuff. So there's a lot of avoiding people and stuff like that. And also, I think there's a lot of foreground and shooting through windows and through dividers and stuff like that. And it was always kind of playing the idea of how we view this issue and these people. And yeah, I don't know. Those were some of the things that were that I was playing with, and a lot of, it was, I don't think that I walked into it with ever being, okay, this is what this is going to look like in any scene. It was a lot of chasing and running around and not being in people's way, and trying to do the best I could within that space.
I think it's a wonderfully empathetic film, and really appreciate you capturing the story and sharing it with us. As we kind of wrap up, what, like, as people, when the credits start to roll, is there kind of one thing that y'all would like people to kind of think about as they kind of go about their lives, and also what's kind of a way to kind of continue to follow the film's progress or help spread the word?
From just from my perspective is that in activism, what's right, and sometimes the government is slow to follow, and do just doing what's right and knowing that it's right. Eventually, with education and other things, the government will hopefully come around. So doing what's right is really important, and especially for drug users. And this may not have anything to do specifically with the film, but it's mostly just about activism and being able to, in your communities, help drug users, something that's very stigmatized, and knowing that you're helping people, and doing what's right for people.
I would say that the film really ends on a joyous note, and that really shows, the personality and the character, and just like the human level of the people involved. And so I hope that the people who watch the film kind of just remember the individual stories, and that glimpse into these people's lives, and carry that forward so that they can have that conversation with other people, and just really remember the human aspect, and that there are real people involved here with real lives and real stories that are much deeper than is sometimes perceived of drug users.
Absolutely, I think so. And Colin, what's a good way to kind of follow the film and kind of spread the word?
There's love in the time of fentanyl.com. And I just want to add to that, as well, as the credits are rolling, kind of question. I mean, you're watching this in the US, where San Francisco is no stranger to this issue. And I think what I have found with a lot of US audiences, that this is and these spaces are new to people. And these are new ideas of how to respond to this crisis. And some people are uncomfortable with it. And I would just ask people to consider, what we've been doing, and where we're at now. And clearly for me, it is a pretty dismal failure, the war on drugs approach, and criminalizing, and all of us saying that just drugs are bad, and just say no. It's more complicated than that. And we need to start looking at the evidence, because there's lots of things that do work out there, that it may not make us comfortable, and it may go against our preconceived notions of how we're supposed to deal with this issue. But I think everyone has their own path, and we need to start having lots of different options for people, to keep people alive, because there's over 100,000 deaths a year in the US now. And so clearly what we've been doing hasn't been working. And yeah, there's lots of screenings coming up across the US, and you can see them on lovingthetimeoffentanyl.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for, oh yes, Sarah.
Was that I've been to San Francisco, I saw their safe injection site, and the work that they were doing, and it's unfortunate that they've taken a step back, and are no longer providing these services. And if there's any government people watching this, it's the front line to getting people into services and help, and we really are able to help a lot of people, and just please, help people make these services available, because they're really important and they do save lives, I guess is what I'd like to say.
Yeah, I think that's a strong takeaway when you see the film. It's a difficult thing to argue for, and I hope that like I said, I think there's just the film was made with a lot of empathy, and hopefully people can kind of walk away with a little bit more of an open mind.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks for
Chris.
having us.
Bye.